I think the main issue in the Ukraine war is that while Trump was elected president here in the US, you have the out of power shadow side of the US government who is, I think, engaged in shadow diplomacy with the government in Ukraine, and they're turning to governments in Europe on the transatlantic side of it to try to wait Trump out and not strike any deal that might involve concession of land to Russia. And so I think that they're hoping that basically if Democrats can win the House in 2026 and that they've sort of resigned themselves, I think, in a certain respect to the indomitable, Trump just existing here for the next couple of years. But if they can hamstring him in Congress, and if they can condition various things on his agenda on providing financial aid to Ukraine, they can wait out the clock as they try other levers to continue putting pressure on Russia. So Trump's sort of stuck, I think, between a rock and a hard place.
And stuck because you've got the biggest cheerleaders for this are in the Senate. It's Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham. I mean, they're all in the rest of the Senate. You've got the NDAA now being negotiated totally in secret, behind closed doors. Josh Hawley and other senators tell us they have no earthly idea what's going on the defense authorization bill. In the House, the America First really movement and people, the MTGs of people really are non-interventionists are probably a couple of dozen handfuls. And the reason is that as soon as Trump's not around to drop the hammer on them, they're going to go back to just being neoliberal, neoconservatives. It's pretty obvious about that. The neoconservative, and one of the reasons is the defense industry spreads so much massive money around of the $1 trillion they get, Mike Benz.
That's exactly right. And even within the financial aid space, the DoD has played an increasingly larger and larger percentage of the development pie. That is, starting really in the George Bush era, DoD began to start to really dominate much of the aid relief programs. Much of this is because of the sort of dual use nature of aid to begin with. When we distribute aid to the pension workers or to the agriculture workers or to the public health care workers in Ukraine, we are trying to essentially curry favor with them to continue a U.S. military mission. And so, my concern is you're shutting down USAID, but you're giving DoD the biggest budget it's ever had in its history. And given that DoD plays an active role in foreign aid, I could very easily see the total dollar number of aid remaining the same and simply moving it through the Pentagon, which is not a whole lot more transparent than USAID. When you look at the books, they've never passed an audit. By some accounts, they've lost between $500 billion and $35 trillion of unaccounted for funds.
No, and essentially say that is that when Mo was at West Point, one of the areas then, because women weren't supposed to be in combat, but in that war in Iraq, there was combat all around you. And I think it was medical services. And she went in logistics, and medical services were two that were there. But the third was civic affairs, right?
That's it.
Civic affairs is a big branch of the Army. Trust me, it's huge.
It's got
huge.
People don't even
Talk
know
to
it
me
exists.
about civic. Tell me
People
about
don't
civic
even know it
affairs.
exists.
Mo said, but Dan, I'm thinking civic affairs, and I go, what is that? Go ahead.
So civic affairs is basically how the military launders the ability to manipulate civilian politics. They'll call it civil affairs, but then that you have like civil political or political military. And this is because we have four quadrants in our sort of doctrinal approach to war, four ways to win or lose a war. You have the strategic, the tactical, the logistical, and the political. And oftentimes what wins or loses a war is the political side of it. It's, a lot of historians think the reason that we lost Vietnam was not because we were militarily outdone by hillside guerrillas, but because we lost the political will to do it. And so there's all sorts of, the civil affairs branch exists to essentially have the military take control or exert influence on the civilian branch of government. And it kind of inverts the entire conception of a democracy where you have the civilian as a commander in chief and the civilian-run government, civilian-run military. When the military is top-down controlling the civilian affairs, then you basically have a military junta. And this is what Trump was confronted by during his whole first term, was the civil affairs branch of the military laundering funds to censor the internet. I ran into this in the internet censorship story, left, right, and center. I had to become a specialist in the area because I didn't know what the hell the civil affairs branch was doing, funding the censorship of the entire Trump movement.